Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be going through a selection of the comments in response to my video, which I made about the Charlotte Dujardin scandal. There has to be penalties for rule breaking, especially when they are related to equine welfare. But I think the answer is that the tack needs to change so that more riders who ride with alternative comfort tack can get through the ranks to the top, and then they become the new standard or benchmark. Because you can keep punishing these people, but I don't think it sinks in, or certainly not as quickly as it should. Another, I was an FEI judge. Interesting. Do you want to know how many judges went to the FEI with this exact issue and complained about it for years, only to have it fall on deaf ears? Well, good. The judges are speaking up. And I'm talking judges from multi-nations here. Over 1,000 of us for years, at least 15 years, if not more, went every year to the general meeting and brought this issue up. It even states in the FEI rules and regulations, and I quote, "The welfare of the horse is of paramount importance and must always be taken into consideration first before anything else," end quote. Trust me, it wasn't like thousands of people weren't trying to get the flash nosebands loosened, so there wouldn't be any blue tongues or that there wouldn't be any rollcur. We tried for years only to have it fall on deaf ears, and we were doing that because riders who were riding correctly were getting cheated out of marks, while riders who rode that way got rewarded with top marks. It discouraged a lot of riders from continuing a riding career because of it. Good, solid riders who would use their seat and legs before reins and not have nosebands cutting into their horse or curb chains so tight that a horse couldn't use its mouth properly. And if a horse is using its mouth properly while doing dressage, there will be froth, or as it's called, soap, from the horse's mouth as they play with the bit, because they are relaxed and important here, enjoying their job. You should see the setup I have for the stallions I'm showing right now. You would laugh at how loose everything is. And here's the kicker. They carry their own bit. It's not up at the corners of their mouth by the bridle. It's there because they put it there. Best regards from a former FEI judge, a retired paramedic, and ethical horse trainer in Ontario, Canada. So, yes, there have been complaints, but who are the judges that are awarding the high marks, and what are they directed to being awarded marks for? Obviously, that needs looking at too. And I want to point out here that there are people, or you don't have to be a personal trainer, a qualified, certified personal trainer or conditioning coach to call yourself a horse trainer or coach. So I think that's where a lot of mistakes are being made, is that there is no set formula for training horses, although the racing world does have one. Although it's not individualized, it's one size fits all. But you need to know about suppling, strengthening, stamina, technique to be able to train a horse. And that's where I think these coercive methods come in. It is out of sports conditioning ignorance. So let's have a look at a few more of these responses to the last comment. Wow, that's terrible. Well, who's going to do anything about it then if they're not listening to the judges? I'm so disappointed in Charlotte. I watched her from the beginning with Vallegro, and prior to that, Carl with Vallegro, who, let's face it, is a 1 in a million horse. Charlotte had an easy job with Vallegro. Yes, she did, as he loved his job and knew what to do. She did ride him well. I saw a test of hers recently with a horse she had produced. It was cringe to watch. Horse had a blue tongue and she was using roll cur. I've never seen Carl Hester use Rollkur, even though his stallion Utopia, who was hotter, was more relaxed. It has to change. It's put me right off watching dressage. However, I will watch Carl at the Olympics and possibly Lottie, though she uses her spurs ad nauseum. I didn't like her last test that she won. Thank you for explaining. It must have been very hard for you and others like you who are ethical and speaking out, but not listened to. Yeah, it's hard, but we accept that we have to do it, that we can do it. We've got a platform to do it. We work professionally as therapists, as a voice for the horse. You can't do the job properly if you're not prepared to speak up for the horse. Terrible feedback, thank you. Even though it's disappointing to hear, with conversations increasing on social media, hopefully it will have a greater impact in the not too distant future. Yeah, for sure, it should, or this discipline will be ejected from the Olympic stage. All the best and thank you for your efforts. And the previous commenter in response to that comment, thank you for understanding that it was the fact that people weren't trying. We were, but it was falling on deaf ears that hurt the sport even more. But with the tape of Para coming out and abusing his horses, and now this with CD, I'm not even going to type her name out. Carl Hester has asked her to remove herself from his property before he returns from Paris, because this calls into question his training practices. So he will be under scrutiny for a while because of her. And she's lost most of her sponsorships. My hope is that the FEI forbids her from competing for at least 5 years, like they did with Para. As to what British organisations do on top of that, she's brought it on herself, in my opinion. My thoughts and opinions on what the punishment should be only, no one else's. I wish you a good week ahead. Yes, all eyes will be on Carl. And as people on here have commented about her abusing Vallegro, which I strongly disagree with, his training will be called into question. I do not think she can come back from this. What a waste. She had it all. Children and adults alike looked up to her. I did. I don't know why she's thought that this type of training was acceptable. Looking at the video, as the lady said, that would be me, she's quite comfortable in what she's doing. I believe had Carl Hester seen this, she would have been evicted sooner. That poor horse was trying so hard to do what she wanted and simply couldn't understand the whipping. He even kicked out and missed her, and she carried on. She caught his nether regions as well at the beginning of the video because his tail swished and he lifted his leg. So there's a possibility that the whip was being aimed at the horse's sheath and genitals. Absolutely appalling. I hope you and those around you can keep going with the FEI. There is uproar over this. Hopefully this time they'll listen. I wish you well and thank you very much for your reply. And again, you're welcome. We're still in the fight. That's good to hear. Because we need insiders. We need whistleblowers to come forward. And we need them to come forward in numbers for anything to change. But yeah, it is ultimately the public who will make the changes if the organisations cannot, and if they're not fit for purpose. Hopefully now, though, they will finally do what we wanted in the beginning and listen to what we've been saying for 20 years now, 20 plus years. One can but hope. With the abuse tapes of Helgestrand, Para, and now her, we hope this brings to the attention of the FEI that this is more widespread than they realise. And that we've been telling, yeah, to be fair, the FEI can only act on what is reported to them. Although, except for the representative they had at the Paris Olympics, who was actively monitoring horse welfare. So yeah, perhaps they need to be more proactive about monitoring. But again, as I keep saying, ensure that their rules and the equipment rules are non-coercive, that they don't facilitate this behaviour. Myself and over 1,000 other multi-nation FEI judges, we've had enough of the anonymous reporting. If the person is underage, fine, report anonymously. But if you are an adult, put your name out there. Sure, you may be blackballed for a period of time for being the whistleblower, but I'd rather that than hiding behind a dang lawyer. Just my thoughts and opinions on the matter. For what they are worth, I'm not giving up the fight. I hope you have a great week ahead of you. But yeah, it's not easy being a whistleblower, speaking as one of them, because these abusive people can easily be abusive towards the whistleblower. Well done, you, Jen, and I hope too that people feel that they can come out and report after all this with Charlotte. I mean, she's a very big name. Some people are 1,000, unbelievable, FEI judges. Let's pray for a huge change in the sport for these beautiful animals. There will be a huge change, but will there be change for the better and riders can remain riding them? Or will it be dropped from the Olympics? I think it will be dropped from the Olympics because I don't think people can change that quickly. Just lastly, if Charlotte had done that to the love of my life, Shadow, my Blagden cob, who I rescued as a baby, bag of bones, flea-ridden and matted all over, well, I'd have got straight off, possibly slapped the trainer. He'd have probably landed a kick before then. I've never whipped him in his life. He's 13 now, and he's too special and precious. That young lady was very lucky she wasn't thrown off and he bolted. That poor horse, probably happened regularly with him, makes me cry. And again, from our FEI judge, ex-FEI judge, it totally disgusted me as well as made me cry as well. I felt so sorry for that poor horse, and especially for that young rider. I pray this didn't turn her off riding altogether, as it so often does. I hope she recovers from this, and I hope that wasn't her horse being used. And if this had been me on one of the two boys I have, I'm afraid, I'm sorry to say, she would have ended up in hospital and I would have ended up in jail because I would have given her the beating of her life with no hesitation at all. Because I'm a second-degree black belt in 2 different styles of martial arts, and I've even studied in Japan under my teacher's teacher. And I have to tell you what an honor that was. So she can be lucky it wasn't someone like me this happened to. Yeah, indeed. Because I wouldn't have put up with it after the first time that she had let fly with that lunge whip. Again, my thoughts and own opinions on what would have happened if it had been me. My one great-grandmother was Irish, so was mine. My last name is German, all on my father's side, and on my mother's side, my heritage is French-Italian. Can you imagine how long it took for me to learn control over my temper? Laugh out loud. The fight isn't over. I have friends and we are still fighting with documented proof and medical studies to back up our words this time. How much proof does the FEI want? Best of luck with your wonderful cob. Love him and give him a carrot in his feed tub from me, Jen. So this is typical of horse owners. They love their horses. They won't let any harm come to them. But for some, this isn't the case. And my background, which leads me to speaking up with confidence, is that my English great-grandfather fought in World War I. That was after leaving school at 12 years of age and going to work with pit ponies, then going on to serve in the army, I think at 18, and then also fighting in the Battle of the Somme and surviving that. and then going on to fight in World War II. And his son, my grandfather, fought in World War II, and he was one of the mounted cavalry that went in to clear the Belsen camp with all its horrific sights after the war had ended. My mother played in the streets of the Bloody Sunday riots in the north of Ireland. So speaking out just comes naturally to me, and I'm proud of it. And another, yes, I hope she does too. Wow, you are a tough lady. I was trying to be polite. She would have got more than that, I'm afraid. You made me chuckle. It's the Italian in you. Good luck with everything. I really mean that. I'll give him a treat on your behalf. It'll be a sugar-free one, though, as he has EMS. I wish I'd have known more about EMS when he got fat. I had fibromyalgia diagnosed and pretty much did nothing with him for a year. Then that happened. He's doing really well now, 150 kg lighter. Wow, that's impressive. And I love him more than anything. He's my best friend, my social life, my everything. Take care, Jen. Yeah, horses are our therapists too. They do massive amounts for our mental health and well-being. In response to that, you as well, take care. As a retired paramedic, I treated quite a few people that had fibromyalgia, bringing them in before they were diagnosed because of the pain associated with it. And yes, make sure it's sugar-free. Laugh out loud. Stay safe, my friend, Jen. And another comment, exactly now the judges turn a blind eye. Roll cure is awful and so painful for the horse. And thank you for being willing to speak truth to the FEI, who should also be exposed and discredited for their enabling of such pervasive abuse. Well, to that I say watch this space, because it's not often that, for one, this happens on the Olympic stage, and two, this is reported by the national press and reported widely. I'm not expecting this story to go away, and I'm expecting the media to have a good dig around, and they won't be just looking at competitors. They'll be looking at the whole picture, the bigger picture. So yes, I'd like to know why the FEI, when their own members have been reporting this as a concern for 20 plus years, why haven't they done anything about it? They didn't have to punish people. All they had to do was change the rules so that more ethical horsemanship could be represented in competition at the higher levels. And we haven't stopped fighting yet. I may not be a member anymore, but there are many other judges who are still fighting on the inside while I continue the fight outside. So having had that input and insight from a former FEI judge, let's leave it there, even though there are hundreds more comments. And if you go back to my video, you can have a read of all of them there. And I'll be back with an analysis of some dressage tests at the Olympics shortly.